So today's podcast episode is great for new moms because I'm going to tell the story of how I became a mother, what that experience was like, and why it spurred the entry into my healing and personal development journey. We're going to get honest today about what it's like to have your first child or have any child at all and not be experiencing, the same joyful, celebratory season that so many other people describe. I know I'm not alone in this, and I was able to pull myself out of, the darkness that ensued during that period of time in my life. And that darkness was because of things that I hadn't resolved from my own childhood and my life experience up until that point. But I was able to pull myself out of that darkness and really completely transformed my life. And my life is now so full of light and clarity that I just want to share more of my story with you. So we're going to do that in today's podcast. Hey there, my name is Danielle D'Onofrio. Welcome to the Danielle D'Onofrio podcast. If you're new here, consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get alerted when I release new videos. I also offer a free life mastery training program, which takes you through my signature methodology, Rehab for Everyone. And you can find the sequence for the videos over on my playlists or on the program webpage. So there are helpful links in the description right below this video. There's also links to the workbook pages that you can use when you go through those training videos. So feel free to take advantage of those free resources. They are here for you to use and help propel your journey forward. So let's dive into today's podcast. And let me just start with a little scenario. So have you ever stubbed your toe or bumped into the corner of the coffee table and just completely lost it? Like what would normally be like an annoyed ouch or ow or whatever, and you're kind of pissed off that you bumped your leg or stubbed your toe. But instead of just like an ouch and a moment of annoyance, you just completely lose it and it's total waterworks, and all of a sudden the floodgates are opening, releasing weeks, months, even years of emotional turmoil. Does this sound familiar to you? I don't think I could be alone in this, but that happens to me sometimes where I'll get hurt. Like I'll just bump into something accidentally, or one time I, shut my finger in my car door accidentally, and it almost seems like it happens on purpose. Because I meant to just release all of the emotions that I've been keeping in for whatever period of time. And it's like the God or the universe knows that I'm not going to release that stuff until I'm forced to cry. So all these little annoying little things show up, I think, sometimes just to give us a reason to just release for a second. And of course, it looks funny to other people because they're like, all you did was stub your toe. You don't have to be losing it right now. Luckily, it usually happens not around many people. I'm usually by myself. Again, it seems serendipitous. But anyway, I digress. My point is that that's kind of what having my first son was like, just multiplied by decades. So becoming a mother just completely shattered the wall that I was using to hold back 28 years of pain, much of it childhood trauma, in order to go about my life with some semblance of having it together. I actually think it was partially that intense unconditional love paired with the pain of childbirth that just completely cracked open my heart, and everything came rushing out. Really, the first, few years of becoming a mother, I was just in a really difficult place. And at the time, I really didn't know what it was all about. I just kind of felt like this is, I guess, just harder for me than it is for other people. And it made me feel, inadequate. It kind of made me feel like something was wrong with me. Like, why was it so hard for me to find the joy and to just enjoy being a mother and to enjoy my son? Like everything just felt so hard and so emotional. I felt very alone. There were people around me, but I felt isolated. It was just a very difficult time, especially with all of these old emotions that I hadn't truly experienced at the surface level for so long. With all of them surfacing, it was very intense, and it was a very dark time. And sometimes I think is that what postpartum depression actually is? I'm not a doctor, so I can't say, but I have a lot of hypotheses about anxiety and depression. Both, I've experienced more so anxiety symptoms at different times in my life, not so much depression, but, these sort of things that show up for us mentally. And I just wonder if like that what I experienced in the first portion of becoming a mother, like maybe that's what a lot of people experience and we call it depression. But really what it is it's this monumental thing happening in our lives, changing the course of our lives forever. I mean, becoming a parent, having a baby, and all of a sudden you're worried about and taking care of someone other than yourself. You're experiencing this burst of love and emotion for another being. And it's enough to just shake you to your core and loosen all of that stuff that's been buried deep down. And, it's very difficult. And, lots of people will talk about different ways to cope. And of course, you talk to your healthcare professional, your whatever healthcare support that you use. For me, it was just, I was struggling mentally and emotionally. And I think I sort of had a hunch about what it was about, but I really didn't have a lot of clarity yet. So in order to just like pull myself together and be able to, function and move on, I just sort of figured out a way to build those walls back up and stuff everything back down and go about my life and, return to the former status quo where I was, portraying to myself and to the world that I was okay. I was fine. And look, from the outside looking in, if you were another person looking at me during that time, I looked like I had it together. I was always dressed. The house was always clean. I was doing things with my son, going to play groups and putting him cute clothes and doing cloth diapers and making my own baby food. And I was doing all the things. I was going through the motions, but it was so hard. And, being strong like that, I think, a lot of us will do that. I know that's definitely been one of my coping mechanisms throughout the course of my life, is just, I don't want anyone to know when I'm struggling, because that feels too vulnerable for me. So I work very hard to, put up that front that I'm good, I've got it together, I don't need to talk about my issues, I'm A-okay. And honestly, that's still kind of how I am. And I don't see that as a weakness and I don't see it as a problem. Like the important part is that I recognize it and I'm able to say to myself, like, yeah, you are making it look like you're okay to everyone else because you really don't want interference and you don't want to share these things with other people, besides, my husband and those close to me, of course. But I need to be able to recognize that something else is going on. Like I'm not actually okay just because I'm pretending I'm okay or I'm putting on, it's not even an act. It's just like me keeping it together because I don't want, my business being other people's business. And the reason I'm sharing this with you now is because I'm 12 years past that point. I have done so much healing and so much growing and experienced so much transformation that talking about it doesn't scare me anymore. And I know that if I talk about it with you guys, that let's say you're in the position I was in 10, 12 years ago, that this can help you know that you're not alone, even if you don't want to share it to, people in your social network or, your community or whatever. Like you're not alone. There is a way out of this. There are so many resources. One of those resources is the Life Mastery Training Program that I offer here on my channel. So definitely go check that out. But, hearing stories from other people's journey is a really, really important part of this. It's a part of healing. It's a part of feeling less alone. And it can very well be the stepping stones to getting you out of the fog, out of that dark period, and, just getting your bearings so that you can go and pursue different healing and, growth practices for yourself. So that was sort of what it was like for me becoming a mom for the first time. And so what happened around that time was I realized that this facade or this, image that I was holding up, that I was okay, it was doing one job, right? And just letting everyone know that I could keep it together, but it wasn't actually resolving the things that made me feel the way I was actually feeling. So behind those walls, behind that wall that I rebuilt and the wall that was in place before I had my son, were a lot of emotional baggage, a lot of wounds from the past. Like I said, a lot of childhood trauma, dysfunctional conditioning, a complete set of false beliefs that were ruling my life. Okay. And they had always been ruling my life, right? Because my issues and the things that caused my wounds started very early on for me. So they had sort of formed my identity. So if you grew up in dysfunctional circumstances, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, that, you know, you just from the get-go, you're sort of in survival mode. You are forming your personality around your defense mechanisms and your survival techniques. And that just sort of, again, starts to form your identity. It starts to form your belief system, and it totally dictates the way you interact with yourself and the world around you, right? So it was like fine in my teen years and my 20s when all I was doing was like I got married and I, you know, started building my career, working my way through the ranks. And, you know, achievement was one of my coping mechanisms also. So, you know, I was working very hard to prove my self-worth, which meant that I was actually moving up in my career pretty easily. And you know, it was like my wounds and my issues weren't really causing me too much of a noticeable problem until I had my son, and I realized that this lack of happiness, this lack of like real true joy and like inner peace and lack of healing of all of those wounds from the past, it wasn't just a non-issue anymore, because what was happening is I could see that they were causing me to not be present really as a mother. I mean, I was present, I was there, but I wasn't actually like spiritually and emotionally in the moments where I was actually getting joy from the moments. And I knew it was going to impact my relationship with my son over time, how I would, you know, build that relationship, my parenting, overall my ability to find joy in parenthood. And if this isn't just about parenthood, mind you, like this is my experience. My journey really started when I became a mother, but the journey overall is learning how to be, you know, a holistically healthy person overall. So a happy and present mother, but also a, you know, a good partner, someone who knows how to engage in healthy relationship dynamics. Someone who's not afraid to pursue their dreams, someone who's not completely imprisoned by other people's judgments and opinions, someone who's, you know, just confident and, you know, understands their own self-worth. So this is a holistic view, and it's not, you know, I don't provide parenting advice whatsoever, because I really think that in order to be a good parent, really all you have to do is learn how to actually be genuinely happy, you know, and I don't mean like the fleeting happy, like giddy type of, you know, fleeting emotions that we experience. I mean, like to your core, you're connected to your authenticity, you are content, you're, you know, motivated, you're driven, and you have peace, you're at peace with yourself and, you know, with your life. So I know that that's what kids need in parents. And when you're happy and at peace with yourself and you're experiencing your authenticity, good parenting habits and good connection with your kids is going to be just a natural byproduct of that. So I don't get into parenting at all. I don't consider myself a parenting expert. I consider myself a healing and personal development expert because I had to do it myself. I had to figure out how to do it myself. It took more than a decade of trial and error and experimenting and research and just figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Eventually, I've gained a lot of clarity, which is why I am coaching and providing my methodology now. But, you know, what I realized is that I couldn't let my wounds and emotional baggage from the past rule my life, especially now that I was a parent. So I realized there was one of two roads that I could take, right? I could sort of take the path of least resistance, which was just do my best to cope throughout the years, try to reduce stress, but not really do anything to break, you know, the cycle of my dysfunctional thinking and habits, and just let life unfold the way it would unfold. And, you know, like I said, that would be the path of least resistance. And it's honestly the path that most people take because, well, let me just explain number two first. The second path would be to actually break the cycle and heal my wounds, which were driving my dysfunctional thinking and behavior, and really just start to gain creative control of my life and create a life that was, happy and peaceful and abundant, so that I could experience that life, and also my kids, my grandkids, and generations to come could benefit from my ability to break the cycle of, generational wounding, really, and generational dysfunction. So obviously I chose the second path, but my point that I started to make a couple seconds ago is that that path of least resistance, where you just kind of like go about your life and you cope and you don't really put in the work to heal your wounds and change your belief system and start to act better, think better, feel better, do better, and all those things. That's the easiest thing, because here's the thing is you have to have a hunch. There has to be some hunch, right? That like things should be a whole lot better than they are right now. You've got to feel like, oh, this feels terrible. This does not feel like how life is supposed to feel. And so like I've got to figure out how to fix this. Like I won't let this reach my children, right? I'm not going to let them inherit these wounds because I feel this way. Like I don't want them to feel this way. And for me, and for a lot of people, I think that ends up being like a prime motivator. But that's really where I was at. I knew that I was not willing to pass my issues down to my kids. And so I chose that more difficult path towards healing. And so once I consciously chose that path, I really had to just step into the darkness, step into the unknown. And, this might be the point that you're at right now. That might be why you're watching this video right now. But I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea where I was going. I had some like little thoughts in my mind, or things I had seen on TV, or things I had read in books, were like, things that lent themselves well to finding inner peace. I know I started doing some yoga. I started getting into essential oils, and I was just kind of bringing myself towards things and bringing things towards me that I had some idea maybe were connected to cultivating peace inside of yourself. And those things actually did start to guide me in the right direction. They were small little things, and actually things like yoga and meditation and modalities like essential oils, those are part of my methodology now. Just a small part, but they're a really nice part. They're actually part of the fourth pillar of my methodology, which is energetic self-care. But really I was very blind to where I was going. I was just searching for clues. Right? I was going off of little inklings that I had, just kind of stepping from one to the next, looking for clues that might provide more clarity and tell me where the next best place to go would be. And during that time, I started reading a lot of books. I started listening to a lot of podcasts. I became obsessed with healing and personal development. I watched videos. I hired therapists and life coaches. I ended up taking a yoga teacher training, which is a very intensive multi-year training where I learned a lot about the mind-body connection. And that actually has informed a lot of my methodology as well. And all of it was fine, but honestly, it took me several years to actually feel like something was happening. At all the things I was doing something because I was afraid of doing nothing. Right? But everything felt kind of random, right? I'm reading a book here, I'm listening to a podcast there, I'm going to this yoga class, or I'm, taking this training, and I couldn't quite see that, big change was happening in my life. I was still struggling with some things, mainly things like mood, irritability. I was still so completely chained by people's judgment and opinions of me. I felt like sometimes my entire life was every single ounce of energy that I had was spent trying to preserve my image, trying to avoid criticism, trying to gain praise, to show myself that I was okay. So that stuff was really happening for a long time into my journey. I was cultivating more peace and, using some of the practices that I was learning about to reduce stress. And that was another thing that in the long term, and probably also in the short term, was helping me in some way. I just couldn't see it yet. And what happens is like compounded over several years, it starts to really make a difference. And that's really what happened is like several years in, I looked up and I was just realized that, wow, things have really changed for me. You know, I went from thinking that nothing had changed and all this stuff was maybe even a waste of time. I don't even know what I'm doing. Therapists don't really get what I'm talking about, which side note, if you're going to work with a therapist or a life coach, make sure that they have experienced similar things to you in life, because it is impossible for someone who has not been in your shoes to give you advice and to understand how you feel. I think that is the most important tip I can offer for someone looking for a therapist or a life coach or any kind of thing like that. And that's another reason why I'm open about my life experience, because if you've been in my shoes, I want to reach my hand back and help you along the way, because I get it. I was there. I know how hard it can be to feel like you're completely in the dark. Like you want better in your life. You want to feel better. You want to live better. You want to do better for yourself and the people that you love, but you have no idea how to do that. Or maybe you have an inkling of how to do that, but it feels impossible. It feels like it's Mount Everest and you have no idea how you're going to even start that journey. And I'm here to tell you that everyone feels like that in the beginning, and it's a matter of trusting that this journey unfolds. It's like a mystery. It just unfolds as it unfolds. And like, you're not going to have additional clarity until you have the additional clarity, until you journey to that next spot. So yeah, that's really what I did. I started experimenting. I started doing all that research and I started practicing things. And eventually I realized that, you know, fast forward several years, and my life was really changing. And I'm now 12 years out from that difficult moment when I became a mother. My first son is going to be 12 very soon. And I can honestly say that my life is completely transformed. I didn't even know what this would look like or feel like. So, you want better, you want to do better, and you want to just change where you're at when you're in that difficult spot. And then you get to that new spot and you're like, wow, I didn't even know what I was shooting for, because this is such a new feeling, this like empowerment and this inner peace and this just understanding that I am worthy and I can do whatever I set my mind to, and I'm a great mom. And, it doesn't matter what other people think. My past was difficult and unfair, but I just realized that the only way to affect my life and to ignite positive change is to release any kind of victim mentality and take full responsibility for making those changes and taking the actions that, instill new healthy functional beliefs and really change your identity. Right? It's like, that's really what healing and personal development is all about. It's about shifting your identity. And the way we shift our identity is we shift our belief system, right? We go from the false, faulty, dysfunctional beliefs that were programmed into us essentially through difficult circumstances in our past. And then we get into adulthood and we're like, why am I failing to thrive in all of these areas that I want to? Like, why am I anxious? Why am I depressed? Why am I broke? Why am I lacking as a parent? Or why am I hesitating in business? Why can't I figure out like what my passions are or my purpose is in life? Like, all of these things show up for us sometimes as adults. And we have to realize that that's like the reason we fail to thrive as adults in different areas of life is because we're still hanging on to wounds and false beliefs from like the time we were kids, but we're adults now. So what we have to do is, really work hard to dismantle all those false beliefs and replace them with new ones, actual true beliefs, based in reality that will help us to resolve the issues that we're dealing with. And so that's what I did. And so a little bit about me now. I just turned 40 years old. I'm married. I have 2 boys. They are right now almost 12, and one will be 8 in a few months. And I homeschool my kids. I run my business from home. I have a wonderful husband. And I'm still working through things. The journey lasts a lifetime. Right? You spend the first 10, 15, 20, 30 years of your life, collecting false beliefs and experiencing things that wound you, right? It's going to take a long time to resolve those things. But what I want for you is an easier, smoother, more well-informed process than I had. And because I've been through it, I can share my insights and tools with you so that you can have an easier time and, hopefully make some big leaps and bounds in a more timely manner than I did, because you have those insights and tools. And because, life is short, and, we want to squeeze the most out of life while we're here. And so, you can't rush the journey. You can't just skip ahead, but you can look to mentors. You can look to people who've been through it. And, we're here. Those of us who are putting our thoughts and experiences and stories, out there to share with you, we're saying like, here, let me take your hand and pull you along the journey with me. I have insight, and I can give you some clarity much earlier than you might find it on your own, because when we're alone, we're walking blind, right? And so I'm here to do that for you. So I have so many resources to give you. I have been writing just thousands upon thousands upon thousands of words for the past several years to articulate and summarize my journey, and to start to package things up to help you. And so I'm in the process of getting all that stuff out. So that's what you're going to find here on my channel. And that's really my passion and my purpose in my life. And it just makes me think that, like, all those difficult times that we go through in the past, at the time, for me, at the time when I was going through those things, that was normal, because I didn't know anything different. And then I started getting, being exposed to different circumstances, and I realized it wasn't normal. It wasn't okay, right? And then I realized that, okay, well, if I want to change, break the cycle, do better for myself, then I've got to put in the work to do it. And so it's just a very profound experience to actually put in that work and to experience the transformation. And it's like, once you've gone through it, I think that's why a lot of people do, life coaching, and they write their stories, because it's like, we've been on this journey that not everyone has been on. And we're so amazed by what it's really like, right? I don't think I think that healing and personal development looks so much different than most people expect it to or think it does. And if you haven't been on the journey, or, you've thought about it, but you haven't actually put in the work, you don't know what that's going to look like and feel like until you actually do it. And here on the channel, on the podcast specifically, I really do want to dive into more of what healing looks like, right? Because I think we get this image of, like, sitting in a meditative state, and there, we're peaceful, and there are, there's peaceful music in the background, and that's what healing looks like, right? Or we're doing yoga, or, we're walking in the woods with a big smile on our face. And, like, yeah, that stuff is involved in the healing and personal development journey. But actual healing, like the things that ignite real change, they're messy and they're difficult. It's like, it involves difficult decisions. It involves walking away from certain people. It involves taking different actions, outside of your comfort zone, outside of your habits, that, put you into a completely different mindset, and doing it over and over and over again until you start to see yourself in a different way. It's about, living your life and creating this lifestyle that is conducive to, changing your course, changing the course that you would have been on. And, one of the reasons I've named my methodology Rehab for Everyone is because really affecting positive change for yourself, especially if you've been through, dysfunctional childhood, and all of the different sort of flavors of what that might look like. It's an intense process to really investigate what it is that is stopping you from thriving. What are those personal barriers, and what are the wounds behind those personal barriers? And how do you break through those personal barriers? And, really what it takes is it's completely overhauling your life. It's actually like creating a rehab environment for yourself on your own independently. So I use the word intentionally because I want it to be provocative. I want it to really change the way that people think about healing and personal development. We've got to take the steps similar to, when someone goes into rehab for the issues that people go into rehab for. You are protecting yourself from exposure to different substances, different people, certain experiences. You are engaging in practices and therapies and different kinds of sessions to try to talk about what's bothering you so you can uncover the things that are driving your issues, right? You're eating healthier, you're making sure that you exercise, and every day you have these boundaries, and every day you have these this routine that essentially guides you through the healing process. Now, you don't have to go off to rehab to do that. And mind you, I'm not talking about substance abuse problems. I'm not talking about, issues where the same issues that people go off to rehab for. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who are just on a healing and personal development journey and they want to affect real change in their life. You can take sort of this model, right? And what I'm doing is I'm teaching you how to create sort of a rehab environment for yourself at home in your daily life so that you can actually start to affect real change for yourself, right? So it's about routines, it's about practices, it's about consistency. And in my methodology, you're going to go through my 4 main pillars, which, essentially become a system that you can work every day, even if you don't know what you're doing, why you're doing it, where you're going, but you know that you want to do something. It's a system that you can work even when you don't have that clarity. And the 4 pillars of the system are boundaries, movement, exploration, and energetic self-care. And so my Life Mastery training program dives deep into those 4 pillars and gives you everything you need to start creating that ecosystem and that, environment for yourself. So that is sort of an introduction to who I am and why I do what I do. Thank you so much for listening. And again, if you're new here, consider subscribing. If the video was helpful, I'd love for you to hit that thumbs up and leave a comment below. And just a reminder, like I said before, the Life Mastery Training program is available free here on my channel. Go over to the playlists or to the program webpage so you can check out the proper sequencing and all of the workbook page links, which again, everything is completely free. And I'm here every week with a new release of that training and also episodes of this podcast. So I'd love to have you here in the community. And once again, I thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks so much.